This is mostly sod, steel frame inside. My work, well, probably for the last 35 years, a lot of it has been sod, earth construction using living materials, mostly sod, but other kind of plants at different times. The early work was really about passage, about a movement through space. And that's what I liked about this site. As I walked through the garden, I like the passage around, the fact there was no path through it. It was just a circular mound here, and decided it would be a good place to create a passage through, and then a structure to meditate or to linger in or contemplate in. So the structure itself is really based on a piece from Japan in 2001 that had two towers that opposed to each other, and then a little space in between, kind of a torii almost. So I did a sod version of that piece really here, and the stone, the seats inside are steel and cement to make it look like stone, or representative of sort of stone or natural materials of some sort. And I look at it as a place of dialogue where people walking through can stop and linger for a while. It should be about, on a hot day, it should be as much as almost 10 degrees cooler inside because of the insulation of the materials and the shade. And even when you're inside, this one, not so much as some of the others, but you actually get a sound reverberation in there, so that it's almost like an echo chamber, which is kind of interesting. A lot of the work since about 2001 has been about communication, and that first one in Japan that was about that was at the base of a large waterfall, and inside or outside you had to yell to hear anybody because of the sound. I was like literally 15 foot away from the waterfall, so it was quite loud. But if you walked inside, that one was sodded, so I mean was thatched, so there was probably almost a foot thick, or I mean 6-8 inch thick reed covering on the outside. So it was very quiet inside. So you walked inside, and again it was two stone seats on either side of this space, and you could sit down and carry on a conversation at a very nice quiet pace or volume, and then step outside again, and you had this roar of the waterfall around you. So since then, the work has really been a lot about that that sense of communication with nature. I mean, they're almost always in natural or either botanic gardens, parks, nature areas of some sort. So it's usually about a communion with the environment, of nature, and with people. If somebody else comes through it, and some of my favorite ones have been in places that more public places, and people would come through and not know each other, sit down, have a conversation, and actually get to know each other, and have a pleasant discourse of some sort, and mainly or partly at least I think from the environment that was conducive to that because of the architectural structure they were sitting in, and everything about it. So anyway, that's what a lot of the work has been leaning towards that in the last 10, 12 years or so. It has been that sort of conversation or a dialogue. The materials, I still do sod. I did one a couple of years ago, but I don't do as much anymore. I've been leaning more towards bamboo and thatching and sapling wood construction for the last, 7, 8 years, 5, 6 years anyway. I'm not sure if it's the economy or what. A lot of my work has been in Europe and Asia in the last few years. They seem to have an interest in ephemeral nature-based work more so than in this country. We're a capitalist country, and if it can't be bought and sold, it doesn't have quite that value. But they really do seem to gravitate towards work which is not a commodity so much. And I like to have a place that is sympathetic material-wise, and and that can sustain the work. Something like this that's living, it does need water. That's the main thing. As long as it gets light, sunlight and water, it will keep going for. This could last up to a year probably. Eventually, it's just 2 layers of sod sandwiched together with over a steel frame, and eventually, after a week or so, this has been up since about a week and a half now, maybe, and the roots start growing together, so it makes a dense mass. There's also some topsoil in between, so it's about this thick altogether. And once it grows together, it makes a nice lawn, but it's only this thick, so it dries out very quickly, and the air passing through it. So not like down here, it's insulated with the earth. So if it stays wet, though, it would last and grow. And in fact, it's a little early for this. Normally, a piece that's been up for this long, the grass would be out to here, and it would be completely bushy. But normally, I don't do one this early in the year. It's actually building it now for about 2 weeks from now would be ideal, because then it wouldn't be too hot, and it would actually be in 2 weeks or so it would really be green and very alive. This would be nice by the time it comes down, probably, when it. But I think they want to hold it up for. They have another festival coming up in May, I think, so they wanted to keep it up for that. So by then it should look real nice. And these columns, they should get bushy, and sometimes the grass actually grows between. A different type of. I've never used this particular type of grass. It's one they recommended here. I think it's 419. Anybody knows grass? But it's they say it's a very hardy grass, but a short blade thing, I think, similar to what's down here, I believe. So I don't know what to expect with this, but in some cases with different types of grass, I've had some that grew sideways and made completed the wall, but it had lighter areas where the grass was growing through. And sometimes the roofs get very bushy and kind of grow over, and other times animals, birds drop things. I've had bushes growing on these things, little shrubs and flowers, weeds. And to me, it's much better after it's had some interaction. I mean, it's still kind of raw, kind of architectural right now. A little bit too man-made looking at the moment. But in another 2 or 3 weeks, it'll get softened. It'll probably brown out some more in other areas, and get very bushy in some other spots. So it'll feel more natural, like it's been there forever. And that's when it's my favorite, I suppose. The basic idea of the 2 sort of structures with the entrance was based on I think you have I might have a picture of it over there on that little poster with the.
Is that one done the same way with steel?
No, that was all bamboo, and I'll say lately I've been working in bamboo a lot because I've been in Asia, and it's plentiful, and it's I wish it was more plentiful here, but I can do the same thing with bamboo I can with steel, as far as bending things, and it's probably as far as like an ephemeral work, it's probably just as good as steel, I would say, because the thinner you make the strips, the tighter you can bend, and just bending and lashing, you can make a pretty substantial any kind of shape with this stuff. In fact, I'd like to see more of that here. I was pushing these guys, start a bamboo garden, and I'd like to see it more like harvested as a agricultural product here, because in 3 years you got a forest, and harvest every 3 years, and can make you can eat it, wear it for clothing, build houses, build out of it. So it's an ideal material, but we don't have the infrastructure, I guess, to support the industries that it needs. Anyway, that's but yeah, bamboo and pretty much any material you can build out of, saplings. And in the Netherlands a few years back, I did one with logs. It was like this, everything was this big, so, I mean, like 20 foot long, and that's a lot more difficult. This is much easier. Bamboo's nice. It's fairly light. It might be this big, but it's strong, and it's easy to move around.
How long could it last? You said about a year. I mean, could it theoretically last forever and just grow into a big, thick bush?
Yeah, eventually the soil, the little bit of soil that's trapped in between here would wash out. They had a piece. Santa Barbara Botanic Gardens did one there in 2000. 2009 maybe. 10, it came down to 11, not 2011. It was going to be a 2-year project, but instead of sod, the columns get the worst abuse because the sod's just stacked up. It's impaled over this post, so eventually it's going to erode and erode, and they'll start sagging down. But there we use redwood columns instead of the roof was thicker, and they were going to plant it out for every season. It was in a Southern California meadow in the Botanic Gardens there, and they wanted to change out plantings 3 or 4 times a year. So it lasted 2 years, and I guess they were changing it out. I've got pictures of it at different times a year, and it did seem sympathetic with the plants around it. So, but the roof's more durable than this is the weak spot on this kind of particular construction is the columns, because they're so exposed and there's nothing. So, they just eventually they'll start wearing away.
How do you find commercial work doing what you do?
I don't find much commercial. I mean, I have a day job, and that feeds the family, at least most of the time, and but the project I do get, sometimes I'll send out, if I see some ad for something, or I hear of a place that's sympathetic to what I do, I might send something. But the last few years, people have sent things to me a lot, that have a place that, or seen my work somewhere, and or pictures of it, and they say, oh, that might be nice here, and they'll, but the ones in Europe and Asia, sometimes a lot of those are competitions.
I see.
And so I'll send information out to them, and but yeah, that's so. But here it's mostly they contact me in this country mostly, but over there it's again international competition things.
And how does your work live on? And do you take very good photographs of it, and then?
I try, but there's I'm not really a photographer, so I try to document it as best I can, but yeah, the work is down in a matter of months, sometimes weeks, sometimes years, but yeah, it's all. Well, there are some. I have done some somewhat permanent pieces, but most of it will be gone in a short period of time. And but it's kind of one thing I sort of like about this type of work is ephemeral work. There's not the burden of becoming an eyesore at some point in the future. That where the thing that nobody sees, that the thing in the park that you walk by, and there's a horse there, or a general, or whatever. And I found a lot of people who have seen my work, lived at a place that they were, and I maybe had visited later or talked to somebody that said that every time they go by there, they remember that, and the piece actually is still more so there when it's not there because it was there than if it was still there, if that makes any sense. So I like that about it. I've done things in the fall and the spring, but I don't think I've ever done anything in the winter. Well, the one at Clemson, I did one up at Clemson Botanic Gardens. That was in February. Yeah, that's right. It was snowing when I was building it. But that was a more permanent work, but it was a stone. Well, yeah, the original of that one was a steel frame with earth and ferrule cement, like a thin layer of cement with mesh on the inside, earth, and then plant material over that. So yeah, that I guess I have worked in the winter, but for more permanent ones, I tend to use there's one at the North Carolina Zoological Park that's a permanent one that's again ferrule cement, and that one has 100 tons of earth on top of it, and I think 50 tons of boulders on top of that. But it's a steel frame, just like the frame for this, but with a mesh and then a cement and pigmented cement and coated many different pigments over top of each other to get a kind of a sense of stone, or that will last for quite a while. I mean, I have one from a exhibition for 4 or 5, maybe 6 years ago that was I plopped it in the corner of the yard, and it's got mold growing on it now, and it looks very much like even more like a rock now because it's kind of grown into the space. And yeah, I mean these I don't know, Yeah, I make them partly because I can move it. You know, it's one person can pick it up as opposed to it would be 600-700 pounds if it was maybe 800 if it was a real stone. And I can do that, of course, but I'd prefer not to. I'd just like the lighter ones. I can get one under each hand that way. So. Recently, somebody emailed me and said that they her husband proposed to her in one of them. Other times, people have told me that they think their child was conceived in one of them. I've heard, yeah, I've gotten some feedback from people who have interacted with them. I mean, some of them, it was one on a college campus in Virginia, VMI, I guess is Virginia Military. Anyway, one of those schools up there that, and in Blacksburg, Virginia, which is at Virginia Polytechnic Institute, I think. Anyway, they found that there's a big football player who was passed out on one. You know, it was a small, like long one, and he had climbed up on it so he woke up at a class day. People were going to classes, hundreds, thousands of people walking by, and this guy's sleeping on top of it. So, I mean, I've had people partying on them, find all sorts of things. So, joints put out in them, and wine bottles stuck in the grass, and it's like a picnic. I've had cops have busted people for picnicking on top of them in places. So yeah, they get lots of interaction that, and I'm fine. I mean, with that, it's as long as it's they don't want to just destroy it. They're enjoying it. I do like the idea of the the conceptions taking place inside. That would